for sure.
Happy New Day, and welcome to Tom Rhodes Smart Camp. I'm very happy and proud to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Manscaped.com. It's personal grooming tools, and I'm going to give you a heartfelt commercial right now for these wonderful people. They contacted me about advertising on the podcast, and to be honest with you, I've got this little beard trimmer from Braun that I've had for maybe 20 years, and I absolutely love it. And, you know, in the past few years, growing out my beard and my hair, I really love this this German beard grooming thing that I've had forever. And I thought to myself, yeah, you know, I appreciate finally having someone wanting to sponsor the podcast, but there's no way they are going to take away my beloved Braun beard trimmer. But they sent me this package with their tools, and I'm absolutely in love with this company. And this Manscaped beard trimmer is so much better and so much cooler than this German device that I've had forever and that I was not ready to relinquish. And it's a creative company. I like the design of the beard trimmer, and I like the names of everything that they have. This is called the lawnmower, which I think is really a cute name for a beard trimmer. And the coolest thing about it, listen to this. That's it. It's got a light on it. It's so cool. Those smarty pants Germans never thought of having a light on their beard trimmer. So the Manscaped beard trimmer is called the lawnmower. And then they've got this nose and ear hair trimmer, and they call that a weed whacker. And listen to this. Look. Oh, hey. That's the sound of me cleaning my nose hairs. I know it's kind of silly, and I've had ex-girlfriends in the past tell me that they thought it was not a good gift, but if you're ever invited to somebody's house for like a party and you don't know them that well, a little gift that I always stopped and got little nose hair trimmers, because everybody needs a nose hair trimmer, and especially as you get older. I mean, you know, I did the joke about I was going to let my ear hair grow out and comb my ear hair over my bald spot. But it seems like, you know, as I've gotten older, the ear hair is a constant battle, keeping that trimmed, and you never want to look like, it's always like the smartest people have the longest ear and nose hairs, and you don't want to look like that moron. So, I say, you know, go to the Manscaped website, manscaped.com, and, buy a bunch of these weed whacker nose hair trimmers for, it's the perfect gift. But for yourself, get the lawnmower. You know, the pandemic was rough. It was fun growing my hair long and seeing how long I could grow my beard. But the thing I missed the most during the pandemic is dressing up and looking like a quality human being. So I'm going. I want to look great again. I'm done with the bushy beard. I'm done with the long hair. And Manscaped.com has come into my life perfectly. I love the stand that the lawnmower is on. It feels good in your hand. I don't know what kind of combination rubber, plastic that this is made out of, but it feels good in your hand. And that German thing that I used before just bit the dust, Daddy. So Manscaped, just for my Tom Rhodes listeners, the Tom Rhodes Smart Camp listeners, if you go to manscaped.com, you will get 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code SMARTCAMP. Got to do it. It's a good way not only to support my podcast, but to support yourself. Let's clean it up, everybody. Let's look great. And I think you'll be amused by the creativity of this company, not only the quality of their products. The Weed Whacker and the Lawnmower. I fully support this. I want you to have 20% off plus free shipping. Use the promo code SMARTCAMP at manscaped.com. How's that for a commercial? Because I really meant it from my heart. Okay, now let's go on with the show. Many of you know, many of you don't know. I had kind of, well, I mean, there's so many problems in the world right now, and some serious issues that this country and this world is dealing with right now. And I know, keep things in perspective about complaining and getting down on yourself. But my Instagram got hacked, and I never realized how important Instagram is in my life. And do you know what your phone is without Instagram on it? It's a black hole. For a week, I'd look at Facebook on my phone or anything else, and it just doesn't have the pizzazz and the, I enjoy, there's so many things about Instagram. Like they said that that study that was released or, leaked information from Instagram and Facebook was that Instagram wasn't good for the mental health of young teenage women. And I don't think it's good for the mental health of anybody, especially not comedians, because, I look at Instagram and I see comedians doing everything on a higher level than me. Oh, that guy's doing a one-man Broadway show. Holy shit, that guy has his own jet that he's flying to gigs on, or that guy's in a movie. I think these things, you're constantly seeing people who are living better lives than you on Instagram, but I missed it, and it's a powerful tool to promote my podcast, my shows, and I enjoy seeing what friends are doing, even if a lot of comedians are flying in their own jets and doing Broadway shows and vacationing in the Swiss Alps or whatever. So here's a scam. I want you to, it's funny that I call this podcast Smart Camp. And I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the world. It's almost like, I'm trying to improve myself daily, and I'm trying to learn. I want to be smarter, and I want my listeners to learn and be smarter with me. And that's why it's like a camp. We're all doing this together. We're learning together. We're trying to be better humans together. We're trying to make a better world. So, I was kind of ashamed. I felt like a loser. I kind of felt humiliated. And it was my own fault. So here's the story of what happened and how I got hacked on Instagram. So I've been doing this thing where, when Ashin and I moved to Los Angeles 7 years ago, for the first few years, we had this thing where we wouldn't look at our phones, we wouldn't turn on the computers to start the day. We would spend at least an hour to start the day reading a book, reading magazines, reading whatever. Smart camp, improving ourselves, and waking up with knowledge and intelligence. So in the last few months, I've been doing that again, because you got to combat this constant desire to be looking at your phone, your computer, and I think there's a massive brainwashing going on with a lot of this, modern technology. So, and I fear that people aren't even going to read books 10, 20 years from now. Like if you look at TikTok, oh my God, it's noisy, it's loud, it's videos. And, I look at it and it's always like girls with big tits jumping rope or crazy things on there. And, why would people read books? I think they're going to sell a lot of drool buckets in the future because people are just going to be like staring at their phone and then that big drip of drool coming down off of their bottom lip is going to be like a modern thing in the future. Maybe 10, 20 years from now, Manscaped will be selling drool buckets. And they'll call it the Smart Camp drool bucket. Who knows? Anywho, that was a silly side thought. And we love silly side thoughts. Anywho, so for the last few months to start my day, I'll have coffee, and I've been reading a book. I've been reading. I've always wanted to read Balzac, I'm excited about my trip to Paris later this summer. So I thought, I'm gonna read some Balzac over the summer to build up for the thing. So I've been reading Balzac's Cousin Betty, and what was it? I don't know, 8, 9, 10 days ago. I started my day, and instead of reading for an hour, I think I read for about 10 minutes. And I felt the pull of the phone. So I grabbed my phone. I had a couple texts. I always text my mom every morning, "Happy New Day." And because I think that's how everyone should start the day. It's a new day. It's a new chance. You can do whatever you want with this new day to improve yourself, to make yourself happy, to get over the shit that bothered you yesterday, the shit that's been bothering you. I think that's, gratitude is a huge thing in life, and being grateful for every new day, I think, is a important component in achieving personal happiness. So, texted my mom, "Happy New Day," whatever, looked at whatever notifications I had, and then I went and I looked at Instagram. And I had a direct message from a friend of mine in Ireland. And this guy, I like the guy. He gives history walking tours in Galway. And I made friends with him when I went on his history walking tour. And I've seen him a few times when I've gone to Galway. When I perform, he'll come and see me. And he's kind of like a radical political guy. Sometimes he'll post hard, political stuff. And so there's a message from him, and it says, "Hey man, I need your help. I've been locked out of my Instagram account, and I need to choose a friend who can give me a code to get my account back." So, I wasn't even awake. I hadn't even drank my first cup of coffee yet. And, my first thought was, I guess the guy posted some radical political shit, and he they censored him and shut down his account. I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I had not heard about this scam. So beware, Smart Camp listeners. There's this scam. And if somebody you think is a friend or a family member or whoever reaches out to you and asks you to give them a code, you are about to be screwed. I'm not even awake, didn't even drink my first cup of coffee. "Oh, guy needs my help. He needs a code." I go, "What code?" And he goes, "You'll get it right now." And then boom, my phone got a text, and without thinking, I sent the guy the code, and then put the phone down and whatever, went to the bathroom, I don't know, had a bagel. 5 minutes later, when I looked at my phone again and went on the Instagram, it said I needed to log in again. And right at that moment, it hit me. An avalanche of stupidity and regret and humiliation. Oh my God. They only send you a code when you're resetting your password. And that's how the guy tricked me and hacked my account. It wasn't through evil wizardry of typing on a keyboard. The guy swindled me. And I had no idea, so I'm locked out of my account, and it totally sucked a donkey's dick to get my account back. There's ways you can, the problem with these companies is there's no customer service for you to call and get help. I went through the regular avenues. You do this, you can submit this video of your face, Instagram asks for, and they can match it to the photos of yourself on Instagram, but I did this 3 times and it didn't work. It says they'll get back to you in a day or two, but I got emails back from Instagram saying that they could not verify my identity, which I don't know. Isn't Facebook and Instagram leading the world in facial recognition technology? And I've posted a lot of photos of myself, so I don't know how that was possible. But fortunately, the day that it happened, John, absolutely love him. He is an algorithm scientist, and he works for a big tech company in San Francisco. And I reached out to him immediately, and he said that he knew someone at Instagram. So he sent him a message. We got on a text thread, and this guy put in a special employee request for them because he said that they literally get millions of these a day, and that it takes a while to recover your account, and that basically he could just move it up in the line. So it was 8 days that I was locked out of my Instagram account. And oh my God, this hacker, direct messaged all of these. I'm sure some of you listeners, I'm sure a lot of you listeners got these direct messages from who you thought was me, in the same way I thought my Irish history walking tour friend had messaged me, and it was the same trick, saying that that I needed help getting my account back, and can you text him the code? And so many of my friends and followers sent me messages on email, Facebook, and texted me with screen grabs of what this guy was asking. And two of the people that I love the most in the world had texted the guy "fuck off," and he blocked them. As me on my account, he's blocking people. And then, I'm sorry, I choose who I block in life and social media. But you're violated and you're helpless when somebody steals your account. And thank God that guy didn't post some strange shit any number of weird shit on my grid. He did it he put all these Bitcoin blasts on my stories. Hey, I turned 300 into 3,000 using whatever 4C some bullshit, but it was just this massive blast about Bitcoin. And imagine if overnight I just became this real huge Bitcoin enthusiast, and oh my God, I had to let all of my followers and friends in on this hot action that you can go to whatever and get some Bitcoin. But the most disturbing thing that the guy did, he put a message on my stories on Instagram, and he said, I'm doing well, or I'm having a really hard time now. Something like that. He did a post it was me, and that I was having some kind of mental health issue moment, so that my friends and followers would reach out and say, hey, Tom, are you okay? And just a dirty, dirty trick to get people for what? For Bitcoin? I don't understand this Bitcoin craze, and a lot of people are talking about investing in Bitcoin now, and I'm against it. I'm really against it now. I mean, how shitty is your product that you got to hijack and hack people's Instagram accounts to promote this product that doesn't exist? And I'm not falling for Bitcoin, because many years ago I invested heavily in Beanie Babies, and I'm not falling for that trick again. I've got a lot of those little cute frog Beanie Babies if anybody's interested. But, what even is a Bitcoin? You can hold a Beanie Baby in your hand and know that it's real. But it was, I can't even wrap my brain around if he's trying to steal everybody's accounts. And because he's doing all these, he did the exact same code trick, and I want you to know never to fall for that. I mean, never, even if it's your mom and she asks for a code, tell her to go fuck herself. Sorry if you hear this, Mom. I would only tell the person who hijacked your account to go fuck themselves. But if you hack everybody's Instagram accounts, who's going to buy the Bitcoin? If you steal everybody's Windows, that we view the world from, which is basically what Instagram is. How are you going to see the advertisements? How are you going to buy these dumbass products that don't exist? So, total scam. I fell for it. I felt like a total schmuck. And thank God, did my friend John Allen in San Francisco had an inside connection to Instagram, because I've heard so many stories from people since this happened to me that they never got their account back. Trying to do it the regular, normal way of that verifying your face video that I submitted 3 times and didn't work. And fortunately, Instagram, whatever they did, they had divers in the ocean. They had reconnaissance drones flying over all over the world. Whatever they did to recover my account, I am so grateful to have it back. Holy shit. And God, what was there was one last thing I was going to say. Thank God for my friend John Allen that got the thing back. And it was a friggin', it was, I'm glad, to live without it for a week was interesting. And I finished my Balzac book, Cousin Betty, but you just feel, remember, I've had times where my car was broken into, or I don't know if you've ever had your apartment robbed. It's just, you feel violated, and you feel, kind of dirty, and kind of, it's humiliating. And I felt completely stupid that I had fallen for this trick. So I'm definitely not going to look at my phone for the first hour when I wake up every day. I'm going to read, make sure I'm fully awake. And then there's the 2-tiered authentication thing you can do for all your accounts, which helps. But, the point is, I was really feeling like a loser, and feeling kind of humiliated and stupid. And the weather's been really hot in Los Angeles this past week. And I was at the grocery store. It was a really hot day. And there was a woman in a sundress. And she bent down to get a can of black beans off of the bottom shelf. And her top of her sundress opened up, and I saw her titty. And, that really cheered me up. As low as I was feeling, as bad of a day and as bad of a week as I was having, I saw this woman's titty. And it was just like a free, I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't expecting it, and feeling kind of bad. And you see a free titty in your day it's just something that's always going to cheer you up. It's like, God, God really does love me. He put this nice titty in my day. So that was nice. And I love summer because it's, it's always, free floating titty season with sundresses and stuff. And, try not to be a perv in my life, but boy, did that woman's titty, seeing it in the grocery store, really cheered me up. Here's a funny story. My friend Lucy Pohl was in town. She's been on the podcast. She's an actress. I met her at the Edinburgh Festival. Really good friends with Ashna and I through the years. She got a part in a movie, and she was in Los Angeles. So for Memorial Day, I went down to visit Ashna, who lives by the beach with her boyfriend, great humans. And Lucy and I, we went down. And so we all went to the beach on Memorial Day. Ashna had a nice barbecue cookout later in the day and everything. But when we got down there, it was such a lovely day. We went to the beach, and Ashna brought this big blanket. And so all of us are sitting on this blanket. But it was really windy. Even though it was sunny, it was really windy. And it was a little chilly wind. So we weren't out there that long. I think maybe 30 minutes. And then so we got up, and I had carried the blanket there, so I'm going to carry it back. And I thought I was far enough away from all the people. And uh, I shook the blanket out to shake the sand off of it. And it was like a cartoon. This like perfect cloud of sand went into the faces of a family of 6. All ages, family of 6. What? 3 kids, the mom and the dad, and maybe like a grandmother. And like this perfect cloud of sand smacked all 6 of them right in the face. I mean, it was comical, this cloud of sand that hit them in the face. And the dad said, "My son is like you." And I said, "Your son's a moron?" As smart as I like to think I am, or like to fool myself that I am, there's little incidences like that to just remind me what a boob I am. Hitting those people in the face, and God, it was humiliating to have my Instagram hacked. But I'm really glad that I got it back. I'm in control of it, and a lot of happy things are happening. Manscaped contacted me about advertising on the show. I saw a very nice titty at the grocery store, and I'm looking out of my windows right now, and the hummingbirds have returned. Yay, hummingbirds. Hummingbirds make me happy. And coming around any minute now is going to be the Rufous hummingbird. I've studied these hummingbirds for the last few years, spending all this time at home. And I don't know if you know about the Rufous hummingbird, but it's orange. It's the most special hummingbird that there is. It's orange, and the Rufous hummingbird, that's the scientific name for this bird. You can Google it. The Rufous hummingbird spends its entire life in a constant state of migration. It goes from Mexico all the way up the west coast to Alaska, and then it goes down over to Colorado, and then back down to Mexico, and so it does this cycle: Mexico to Alaska to Colorado, back to Mexico, and the lifespan of these hummingbirds are, I think, 11 years, 12 years at the most, and they can make this cycle 9 times in their lifetime. So their whole life is doing this migration cycle, and in their brains, they drop a pin into their little brain GPS maps. They know where they got nectar, and they always return to the places where they got nectar. So I keep these hummingbird feeders full of nectar on my balcony, and I'm expecting the Rufous hummingbirds to be coming back any day now. So if you live in these areas, if you're in Alaska, Colorado, or anywhere on the West Coast, keep your eye out, baby, because here comes Rufous. It's the most beautiful hummingbird there is. So, life isn't all bad when you got hummingbirds coming to your balcony. Oh, and I have to tell you, I recorded an episode that I never put out about Will Smith smacking Chris Rock at the Oscars. It was an hour and a half long, and it was basically, I was pretty angry after it happened. I think every comedian on the planet Earth was angry after that happened. And, number one, Will Smith was not reacting to the joke because he laughed at the joke. And then he looked at his wife, who was pissed, and he knew that he was never going to live that moment down. And they have an open relationship, and I think he was reacting to problems at home he had never addressed. Namely, the fact that he knows other men are diddling his wife. But it really triggered something in me. It reminded me of a story that happened to me when I was in high school. I played high school baseball. I started being a stand-up comedian when I was 17, and I was still playing baseball. I think it was like my senior year. But at the beginning of practice, you do calisthenics. Everybody's lined up and doing these stretching exercises before the class. And there was a kid in front of me, and I sneezed on my left hand. And with my right hand, I wiped it on the guy's back, and I went, "Ew!" And he turned around, and he punched me right in the face, square in the nose. Um, and then the team pulls us apart, and it was really this big to do. And I was just trying to be funny. I was trying to be funny all the time. I wanted to be a comedian, and I learned you can't joke with people who have no sense of humor. And there was no snot on the guy's back. He felt it instantly and saw that. But it was like the biggest thing at that moment in time where everybody in the school wanted us to fight, and I didn't want to fight the guy. And I remember passing goons in the hallway who called me a pussy. And I was so angry and upset about this. I remember telling my dad about it. And my dad took me to a dive bar near the University of Central Florida, and we went into the back. And my dad got a pitcher of beer. And it was the first time I had ever drank with my dad and in a public place, instead of like in high school with friends in cars and, sitting on hoods and stuff like that after football games. And it was really this beautiful moment that I had with my dad, because he said, as hard as this is for you to see right now, I want you to know this too shall pass. And, that was like that's the kind of advice you need to hear when you're 17, 18, and, the whole world seems to be, everything was, life or death back then when you're a teenager, So that's always, been great advice that stayed with me through the years, that this too shall pass. And I just felt so bad for Chris Rock, because he had that happen basically on the worldwide stage, and everybody in the world saw it. So that was pretty upsetting. So speaking of baseball, I read this biography on Ted Williams called The Kid. And I always loved Ted Williams. I think he's probably one of my favorite baseball players of all time. And reading this biography, God, everybody's flawed. Even me, believe it or not. And I wouldn't say I like him less, but it's just like, I don't know, certain things you shouldn't know about your hero, your heroes. He grew up in San Diego, and his father was a drunk, never talked to him unless he was drunk. His dad was always gone, and his mother was always gone too. She worked for the Salvation Army, and she was known as Salvation Mary. So she was always going to, there was a lot of, dive bars in San Diego, and Navy guys hanging out at them. She was always in all these dive bars trying to convert people to Christianity, to get them to give up their wicked ways. And she'd go down to the bars in Tijuana. And so she was always gone saving souls. So this made Ted Williams hate his mother, which kind of influenced the way he treated women for the rest of his life. And also, he was half Mexican because of his mom. And he concealed the fact that he was Mexican because the United States was so racist at the time, he thought that would hurt his baseball career. Or for whatever reason, he just, what a shame. So many Mexican Americans that could take pride in knowing that one of the greatest hitters in the history of baseball, was half Mexican. So, he started playing in 1939. He was just a sensation from the beginning with the Red Sox, but he had a lot of relationships, treated women like shit, because he had this issue with his wife. But like really cool things I always loved about Ted Williams was the fact that he had, I thought he was a fighter pilot in World War II, but it turns out he had volunteered and he was trying to be a pilot. He was actually in flight school when World War II ended, so he never got to see any action. But then Truman, during the Korean War, called up all these reservists, and Ted Williams had stayed a reservist, and he kind of was resentful of the fact that, like, all these years he missed in baseball, that he could have broken so many more records had he not been called back for service. But he was a badass in Korea. He got shot down and somehow miraculously made it back to the base, and he had a lot of missions, and he truly was a badass fighter pilot during the Korean War. And so cool that he comes back. Oh, and then he got shot down that time and he didn't eject because he was really tall and he didn't want to fuck up his knees. So he could, because he thought when he ejected, his knees would be, hit the dashboard or whatever and be fucked up. But he wasn't nice to his women. He really foul temper. And then the last woman he was married to, he had 2 kids, and he lived in the Keys. He lived in Isla Mirada. And when I was I went to visit my mom in Florida last month, and then I did a great little gig at the Key West Comedy Club, and I drove down there because I love that drive down the Keys. I think it's so beautiful. Key West is one of my favorite places on the planet Earth. It's been a great place for, as a lot of you know, of healing for me, where I went a number of times after my father died, and where I went after my sister died, and I just think the Keys and Key West is a really special place. And I stopped off to see the house where Ted Williams lived in Isla Mirada, but all you can see is a gate and the address, and no big deal. But I thought about it. Key West is full of bars, and there's live music, and there's so many crowds of people spilled out into the street. And I think that the reason there's never been a mass shooting in Key West is because I think the drive down the Keys is so lovely that by the time the mass shooter got to Key West, he had forgotten all about it, and his thoughts had turned to where can he find some key lime pie. Anyway, that's just my little dime store theory. But Ted Williams loved the Keys, and he loved fishing. He would even go to Canada and salmon fish. So the last woman he was married to, he had a couple of kids. He had a daughter first from his first marriage, and he wasn't close to her, and she was a drug addict and promiscuous, and he was an absent father. And then later in life, she was such a fuck up. He actually had his lawyers call her in to their office when he rewrote their will to let her know that she wasn't getting anything in the will. It was really, really kind of a nasty moment. But these last 2 kids, he had one son, John Henry, and after he's retired from baseball. Oh, here's a funny thing. Like, after he retired, he was a manager for the Washington Senators, and the Senators totally sucked. It was, I thought this was a cute little highlight. If the Senators played poorly, Williams didn't hesitate to let them know. Once, after an especially sloppy performance, he locked the clubhouse door and let them have it. "Gentlemen," he said, "that was the worst exhibition of baseball I have ever witnessed. I'm afraid we're going to have to start over at the beginning." He reached for a ball and said, "Now this, gentlemen, is a baseball." At that moment, Frank Howard raised his hand from the back of the room to interrupt. Skip," he said, "would you mind taking that a little slower?" Everyone laughed, and the tension was broken. So anyway, Ted Williams had a brother in San Diego who was just a fuck-up and a criminal. And it's interesting, Ted Williams' son, John Henry, was a fuck-up and a criminal. And he used to forge his father's signature. When he was in college, he used to drive around with a trunk full of baseballs and baseball bats that he had forged his father's signature on, and would sell them. So later in life, Ted Williams is old, and he wants to do something with his son, so he lets his son take over the memorabilia department of his life. So he signs contracts where he's signing all these, he's got to sign a certain amount of autographs for these different memorabilia companies and auctions and stuff. And I have this signed Ted Williams. My friend Kathy, who used to manage the Atlanta Punchline, at one time was Ted Williams' personal assistant. And when she knew how much I loved Ted Williams, so she got me this signed photo, and it says "To Tom, Ted Williams," and I've always loved it. And it's framed and it's hanging here in my apartment. And I should back up. There's one thing I wanted to tell you. Ted Williams thought to be the best at something, you had to convince yourself mentally. So before every game, he would take a bat in the clubhouse and he'd look in the mirror and he'd practice his swing and he'd look at himself and he'd say, I'm Ted fucking Williams. I'm the greatest hitter in baseball. I'm Ted fucking Williams. I'm the greatest hitter in baseball. So like there's shit like that I had heard about Ted Williams that I always found charming. You know, his determination to be the he wanted people when he walked down the street to point at him and say, there goes the greatest hitter who ever lived. So all he cared about was baseball and fishing. Like one of his wives, he told him, she said that she needed to be number one. No, it was a woman he wanted to marry. And she said she needed to be number one in his life. And he said, baseball's number one, fishing is number two, and you're number three. And she said, no thanks. So John Henry, his son, takes over, and he started this. It was like Ted Williams' Enterprises, and it was really kind of sad. He had him signing autographs. I think they even, it appears like they kind of kept him alive at the end of his life to keep signing. And then they made some kind of hand rest so he could practice his signature. So really, the son, it sounds like the son had like that kind of criminal heart and really just saw his father as a big cash machine and had him signing autographs until the end of his life. And then he put up these closed circuit cameras in the house so that none of the servants would bother him and ask him for autographs. And, it makes me wonder, do I have one of those autographs that when Ted Williams was at the end of his life and his son was just pushing him to keep signing his name because every signature is worth like $1,000 or something. So, Ted Williams it was in his will. He wasn't religious. The main thing he wanted when he died, he wanted his body to be cremated and the ashes to be spread out all over the Florida Keys where he loved to fish. And after he died, the son had him cryogenics. He had his head removed and frozen and put in some cryonics. I forget exactly what it is. Frozen in a place in Arizona. So the kid went completely against his dad's wishes and kept him signing autographs until the day he dropped. So I think the moral of the story is never give anyone the power of attorney, especially your son, who you might not trust fully. So that's what happened to Ted Williams. And now I can think about that whenever I look at that framed picture in my apartment. The other book that I just read, while my Instagram was hacked, I had already started reading it. Like I said, I read this book, Cousin Betty by Balzac. And what a complicated time in France whenever this was. Every man had a mistress. All this money that people were, had to pay their mistresses to have apartments and carriages. And, it just sounds like such a, complicated time. Like you really weren't a man unless you had women on the side and stuff. So let me read you some of these highlights from Cousin Betty. It is not art's highest achievement that they have revealed to us. It is art's sweetest pleasure. The distinction proves that in the creation of works of art, the same chance is at work as in the creation of children. Some children are born with a silver spoon in their mouths, are talented, beautiful, and born without pain to their mothers. The world smiles on them, and success crowns all they do. There are, we may say, the flowers of genius that are like the flowers sprung from love. This brio, an untranslatable Italian word, which we are beginning to use, is characteristic of an artist's youthful works. It is the product of the vitality, mettle, and ardor of young talent, and although its spirit may return again in certain happy hours, brio later no longer bursts from the artist's heart. Instead of actively projecting it into his works like a volcano hurling forth its fires, he is acted upon. He is affected by influences from outside. He owes his brio to circumstances, to love, to rivalry, often to hatred, more often still to the need to live up to his reputation. I'm happy I finally read a Balzac book, because I did that joke forever. The first time I was invited to perform in Paris was because that they had heard that my specialty was talking about the philosopher Balzac. But when I got there, they found out my specialty was talking about my Balzac. Oh, this is quite a difference. So now maybe I can write a better joke than that. Okay, from page 220. Constant labor is the love of art as well as the law of life. For art is the creative activity of the mind. And so great artists, true poets, do not wait for either commissions or clients. They create today, tomorrow, ceaselessly. And their results? A habit of toil, a perpetual consciousness of the difficulties that keeps them in a state of marriage with the muse and her creative forces. Canova lived in his studio, and Voltaire in his study. Homer and Fidelus must have so lived too. These are the highlights from 239. Men have a moral obligation to be faithful to the women who love them, if only because of the perpetual miracles that true love can create in the supernatural regions that we call the world of the spirit. In her knowledge of the man she loves, a woman in love is like a hypnotist's subject, to whom the hypnotist has given the unhappy power of remembering what she has seen in her trance. Passion heightens a woman's nervous tension to the point of inducing an ecstatic state, in which presentiment has an acute awareness like clairvoyant vision. A woman knows when she is betrayed, although her love will not allow her to acknowledge or heed the voice of her sibylline power. This sharpened vision of love is worthy of religious veneration. In noble minds, wonder at this divine phenomenon. In noble minds, wonder at this divine phenomenon will always be a barrier in the way of infidelity. How can a man fail to adore a beautiful, divinely gifted being whose soul attains the power of such revelations? From page 308. She has smartened me up, improved my way of speaking, as you see. She prunes the jokes I crack, gives me words to say and ideas. All right, here's the last one. From page 346. Come, cheer up, old boy. Life is an overcoat. When it's dirty, we brush it. When there are holes in it, we patch them. But we keep ourselves covered as well as we can. This philosophy of vice and her spirited gaiety dissipated Hulot's bitter griefs. Next day at midday, after a delicious meal, Hulot saw walk in one of those living masterpieces that only Paris and the whole world can create. For only in Paris exists the endless concubinage of luxury and want, of vice and sober virtue, of repressed desire and ever-renewed temptation, which makes this city the heir of Nineveh, Babylon, and imperial Rome. Mademoiselle Olympie Bijou, a girl of 16, had the exquisite face that Raphael found in his virgins, with innocent eyes saddened by overwork, dreamy dark eyes shaded by long lashes, their limpidity suffering from long nights of toil, eyes heavy with fatigue, and a complexion with the fineness of porcelain and an almost chlorotic transparency, and a mouth like a half-burst pomegranate, a passionate breast, a rounded figure, pretty hands, dazzlingly pretty white teeth, luxuriant black hair, and all this beauty was done up in cotton at 75 centimes a meter, adorned with an embroidered collar, mounted on stitched leather slippers and garnished with gloves at 29 sous. The child, quite unconscious of her rare value, had put on her best to come to the grand lady's house. The baron, seized afresh in the taloned grip of sensuality, felt his whole life centered in his eyes. He forgot everything before this divine creation. He was like a hunter sighting the game. Not even the presence of an emperor will prevent him from taking aim. Wow. Balzac. That's some Balzac in writing. We love that dude. So next time somebody tells you to show some sack, maybe you can write an epic novel like Balzac. Hey, speaking of showing some sack, for the past year, I've been working on this idea with this young filmmaker on LA history. It's an idea I came up with like a year ago, and coming this week, I'm going to release the first episode, which is on Charles Bukowski. And I go around filming stuff around Los Angeles, telling about the man's history, and, informing people about why they should give a shit about Charles Bukowski. And there's so much cool history in Los Angeles, entertainment, historic, culturally, that I thought this would be a cool idea for a show. So it's been kind of my little secret project that I'm about to unleash on the world this coming week. So I finished episode number 1 on Charles Bukowski. Episode number 2, I've been filming for a while on Tupac Shakur. And then the cherry on the cake, yesterday I went to the LA Convention Center with Eric Urquidez and Dennis Carlson, and there's a thing called it was the very first Urban Con, and it was a lowrider car show. So I've always been fascinated by the lowrider culture of Los Angeles, and I think it's something so uniquely special and American. You know, like the way jazz originated from Harlem in the 1920s in New York, and stand-up comedy and lowrider culture of Los Angeles, born from the Mexican-American community. So, I mean, I think those are like some really uniquely American art forms. And I'm blown away by the lowrider culture and these cars. There's like so much detail and the paintings on them, and even the little metal frameworks have got designs and carvings on them. It's just, the way Sotheby's will sell like an Andy Warhol painting or a Van Gogh painting for like $100 million. That's how I feel about some of these lowrider cars, that I think that they should be worth millions and millions of dollars and should be, auctioned off for that much money. And I learned at that lowrider culture, the lowrider car show yesterday, interviewing people, that it's really like a family thing. That, a lot of these cars are passed down and inherited generation to generation, and just so much work goes into like putting in the hydraulics and, the redoing the upholstery and and all these beautiful paintings that are on it, you know? And walking around that convention center, you know, there was some pretty looking dudes with tattooed necks and tattooed faces and, you know, old and young. And, you know, it's, you know, just, there's some rough looking dudes associated with it. And I interviewing people, I thought it was really cool to find out that it's really like a family thing, and that and all these families were at this car show, and that all these cars, it's really like special to each family. And it was cool. There was like a little kid rapped. I don't know, the kid was like 5 years old, got up and rocked the mic. I interviewed a couple really cool people. One of them was Loretta Vamps. She had clown makeup on, and she told me she's going to be in a Latino zombie movie that's coming out soon. And she told me she had a clown fetish, which I think that was really interesting, because I've always been kind of afraid of clowns. I think they're really creepy. And she was a real badass. And then, God, there was a comedian, female comedian also. Let me look her up real quick so I don't look like a moron. Tanya Estrada. I interviewed her. She was really cool too. Really enjoyed it. So I'm making an episode on the LA car culture, the lowrider car culture of Los Angeles. And I'm gonna do. I got a long list of episodes I want to do, like murals, the mural culture, the tattoo culture, Buster Keaton, Hattie McDaniel, Jane's Addiction, Jim Morrison, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. So it's been like this project that I've been working on for a while, and I've got a lot of episode ideas coming up, and I'm pretty excited about it. So keep your eye out. I'm going to release that episode number 1 coming up soon in full on YouTube, and then I'm going to chop up all the, you know, make little 1 to 2 minute clips and put them on Instagram. God, did I mention how happy I am that I got my Instagram account back? Phew! You know, and it's interesting. I did overdose on the news several times in the past couple years, and it just made me depressed, angry. I don't get any jokes out of it. So when I'm in the car, I'm trying not to listen to the news at all. I've been listening to the Beatles. And I remember when I had the late night talk show in Amsterdam, there was a American expert named Martin Van Rossum. And he was like a really harsh critic whenever anything of the United States was happening or in the news. He would go on these news programs, and you know, guy was a really tough critic of America. And I had him as a guest on the show, and I remember I'm trying to like be silly with him and get him to loosen up, and I was like, you know, hey man, what kind of music do you listen to? And he goes, give me a break, I am preparing for death. I only listen to classical music and the Beatles. And I thought he was like, wow, this guy's really got to stick up his ass. But then as I've gotten older, you know, what more do you need in life? The Beatles, classical music. You know, the Beatles made a song for everybody, little kids, old people. And it makes me a lot happier to not listen to the news as I'm driving around and just listen to the Beatles. And I've been on a big Curtis Mayfield kick, too. When I'm at home, I've just been playing the shit out of Curtis Mayfield. And I recommend you give Curtis a listen, too. Then the other guy I've been listening to a lot is Charlie Crockett. I've mentioned him a few times on the podcast. Just this country guy that I motherfucking love. But listening to the Beatles all the time reminded me of that game that I invented. It's been a few years since I talked about this on the podcast, but whenever I met a real Beatles fanatic, I invented this game. I would ask them, if you were on a plane crash with the Beatles in the Andes, and the Beatles were in their prime, and you had to eat the Beatles to survive, which Beatle would you eat first, and which Beatle would you eat last? And for years, I always thought I would eat Ringo first, and most everybody I asked said they would eat Ringo first, and then forever, I always said that I would eat John Lennon last because he was my favorite. I thought he was the coolest. But as the years have gone on, and I've talked to so many people about this and played this silly game with them, I've totally changed my opinion. I would eat John Lennon first. Because, if you think about it, he was really kind of a cantankerous asshole. And he would have been difficult to be friends with. And I think I would eat John Lennon first. And now I would eat George Harrison last. Because he had that Hindu vibe. And was really spiritual. And seemed like he probably would have been the most pleasant to hang around. So there's a game you can play with yourself. Contemplate which of the Beatles you would eat first and which would you eat last. Oh, and then speaking of Instagram, I got it back a few days ago, and some guy left a comment and said, you forgot to put douche in your bio. Because on my bio it says comedian, writer, world traveler. And the dude said, you forgot to put douche in your bio. And I thought, oh, wow, I'm so glad that I got my Instagram back. And, to get the occasional shitty comment means that things are back to normal. So hooray and hallelujah. And I just want to say how grateful I am to you for listening to the podcast, the people that support the podcast. And I just want to say how grateful I am to be 1 year past where I was 1 year ago. 1 year ago, I was still struggling with having PTSD from witnessing that suicide, and my brain was really fucked for about 6 months after that. And thinking back on where I was at this time 1 year ago and to where I am now, and the problems that I have now are really kind of small compared to what I was going through a year ago. So keep that in mind. Whatever's troubling you, whatever shit you got nibbling at your brain, stealing your happiness from you, a little bit of time makes all the difference in the world. So I think that's about it. I love you very much. I thank you for listening. And do yourself a favor, do me a favor, and do the world a favor. And clean up all your raggedy facial hair and pubic regions by going to manscaped.com, and you'll get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code SMARTCAMP. That's right, my SmartCamp people. That's you. Get 20% off and free shipping, and let's clean it up. Let's look good for the world now. That's what I'm going to do. Hooray for humanity, and long may you run. Shalom, amigos. Amigas. And now I'm going to drive to Las Vegas. Hooray.
Tom Rhodes, you're a funny man. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedian. Tom Rhodes, karate kick, baby, oh yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're a groovy dude. You go all around the world, telling jokes to all of the people. You are an international comedian. You're funny to everybody in every single country in the world. Tom Rhodes, I like you very much. I think you're talented and very wonderful. Tom Rhodes, you're the best guy in the world. I wanna be your friend, you should call me sometime. Here is my phone number, 603-644-0048. Yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedic sensation. Tom Rhodes, I like to listen to your podcast. Tom Rhodes, you're the best man to ever walk on the earth.